everyone, welcome again to Hybrid Accounts, and today we're just going to take a look at some working capital ratios here. So this is the ACCA question, June 2014. It's called CSZ Company. Now let's go and read the question. The current assets and current liabilities of CSZ Company at the end of March 2014 are as follows. So we are given the current assets and liabilities, inventory, trade receivables, payables, and overdraft, and the net current assets. Then we are told for the year to the end of March 2014, CSZ Company had domestic and foreign sales of $49 million, all on credit, while the cost of sales was $26 million. Trade payables related to both domestic and foreign suppliers. Then, for the year to the end of March 2015, the next year, CSZ Company has forecast that credit sales will remain at $40 million, just as 2014, while cost of sales will fall to 60% of sales. Then, the company expects current assets to consist of inventory and trade receivables, while current liabilities will consist of trade payables and the company's overdraft. So that's what we are told that comprises of costing of current assets as well as current liabilities. Then, CSZ Company also plans, so you have information for 2014 above here, but also information for 2015. So you have to be careful about that, right? Then, CSZ Company also plans to achieve the following target working capital ratio value for the year to the end of March 2015. So other information for 2015, inventory days, 60 days, trade receivable days, 75, and trade payable days, 55 days. Then you're given the current ratio is 1.4 times. Then what are we required to do? Now, if for part A, calculate the working capital cycle for 2014. Now, for this, you can just go to the previous video because I've already done it on the previous video. Our main focus here is here. Calculate the target quick ratio, which is also known as the asset test ratio, and the target ratio of sales to net working capital of CSZ Company at the end of March 2015. So our main question here is part B. We are just going to deal with part B here, all right? So as for part B, we have to use information for part B. So that's what we really need to focus our strength on. All right? Yes. So if you just take a look here, to get the quick ratio equals to current assets less inventory over current liabilities. But we really do not have that information. This one is for 2014. So I'll come to 2015 and use inventory days 60. Trade receivable days 75, trade payable days 55, and the current ratio that is 1.4 times. Let's go directly to the question and see to the solution and see how we should go about this, right? All right, let's go to the solution now. Actually, so we'll start with target quick ratio and then we'll come to sales to net working capital ratio. So that's what we're going to do. And that's number 3. So here we are. So you can just come from this one. We know that this is the formula for current ratio. I hope you know the formula for current ratios. Quick ratio, this is the formula for quick ratio. Current assets minus inventory over current liabilities. And that is what we are required to do right now. All right? Yeah. So that should be our sole focus. So let's go back to the solution and see how we can proceed about this. All right. So this is just a question. Let's go to the solution and see how we can proceed about this. Leave part A. As for part A, you can just go to the previous video. So just go to part B. This was part A. All right. Now going back to part B. This is part B now. We need to know the quick ratio as well as the net working capital, sales net working capital ratio. So at the end of March 2015, how am I going to do this? You know, as I told you before, we need the quick ratio, and quick ratio equals current assets minus inventory over current liabilities. But to know the current assets, you know, we are told from the question that current assets is comprised of inventory as well as trade receivables. Now, how do I obtain inventory? You know, you can just come from this formula here. We used to write the working capital ratio formula, right? We said that inventory period equals to how much? Inventory period always equal to inventory over cost of sales, and then the whole value multiplied by 365 days, if it's about days. So if you make the subject inventory, we say that if you make the subject inventory, then inventory becomes the reverse now. Inventory becomes the ratio of days. I'll have the inventory days or inventory period divided by 365, and my total value would be multiplied by cost of sales. So this is how I'm going to obtain inventory. So I'll also need the trade receivables. How am I going to get trade receivables? The same way. To obtain trade receivables, if you make the subject this working capital, this trade receivable period ratio, you would say that trade receivables, this would be equal to trade receivable days or trade receivable period over 365 multiplied by sales. Actually, we use credit sales, and the question said that all sales were on credit. So this is what we're going to do. All right. So after having obtained this, I think you can proceed. You can know why you determine the cost of sales. We will need it here. The question told us that cost of sales is 60% of the sales, right? I hope the question told us, and we saw that from the question. So we'll proceed now. To obtain cost of sales, I'll just take the 60% of sales. 60% is 0.6 times total sales, that was 40 million, and they will obtain 24 million here. All right? So that's what you need to be very careful about. And then I could proceed now to obtain that figure of inventory as I just showed you. Inventory would be equal to inventory days over 365, and then multiplied by how much? Multiplied by how much? Inventory period was 365 multiplied by cost of sales that I just showed you. So inventory period was 60, you have 365 days times 24 million, and I would have this figure. I'll do the same for trade receivables. Trade receivables, receivable days over 365 times credit sales. So this is what I would have here. Trade receivable days was 75 or 365 times 40 million, and I would have that figure 8,219,178. So now I can have the total current assets. Current assets will be the sum of inventory and trade receivables. That would give you a total of 12,164,384. I have the current assets. I'm repeating again, the formula for quick ratio, total assets, current assets, minus inventory over current liabilities. Now I have all current assets. Then I'll go to determine the current liabilities, but I do not have sufficient information to determine the current liabilities. So I could come from the current ratio. The current ratio equals to current assets over current liabilities. And so if you make the subject, the current liabilities would be equal to current assets over current ratio. So current assets we have it here, up here, 12,164,384 over current ratio, that was 1.4. I think this was given from the question, right? Yeah, it was given from the question. So if you divide them, you would have 8,688,846. All right? Yeah, so that's what you would arrive at. So after getting that, you would say that, oh, I already have the trade receivable with me. So what am I going to proceed with? What am I going to proceed with? I already have trade receivables with me. So you could just go directly and proceed with the question. If for that information, everything is here. You have 60 days, inventory days, receivable days 75, payable days 55. All right. This is the information that you already have. So actually, someone could have said, oh, what if I used to obtain the trade payables? I could have used this formula. Oh, we can need it later, so we can also use this one. Because by using this, I could have obtained trade payables, but I needed total current liability. That's why I use the current ratio. All right. So just note that trade payable days equals to 70 to 55 days. Then let's go to the solution and proceed on how we need to go about this. So because I already have total current assets, I already have inventory, but also I already have current liabilities. This one becomes much easier, right? Yeah, it's just a matter of plugging in the formula and obtaining everything. So I can just go and determine what you really need. But also you have to remember that we are also told to determine the sales net working capital ratio. Let's go to the solution, sales net working capital ratio. So by now, I hope everything is fine about how to obtain the current quick ratio, because the quick ratio will be determined by this formula here, target quick ratio or acid test ratio, is total assets, which was 12,164,084 minus current by minus inventory, but inventory was this one. So 12 million minus this 3.9 million, you would obtain the same 8,299,000 and 178. That's why there was no need to minus here, because current assets were only consisting of inventory and trade receivables. And then we divide by by current liabilities, and we have 0.95 times. What does this mean? Actually, nowadays for ACCA, they are just they like to use number of times, but right now it's not used. It's not need to write times here, right? So this just means that 95% of the current liabilities can be paid out of current assets. The rest should be paid out of other assets. That should be non-current probably. All right, as for the net working capital at the end of March 2015, net working capital ratio, we just take the sales of our net working capital, but we do not have net working capital yet. How do you obtain the net working capital? Net working capital equals to current assets minus current liabilities. What are the current assets? This one, 12,164 and 834. 384, sorry, this one. What are the current liabilities? Current liabilities, we have them here, 8,688 and 846, this one. If you subtract, you have the net working capital. So to obtain the target sales net working capital ratio, you just take your sales that were 40 million divided by the net working capital, and you will have 11.5 times. What does this signify? When you come to learn of overtrading or undertrading, you will learn that sales should grow with the net working capital. In case sales are much higher, have grown much more than the net working capital, this ratio would be very large. For example, if this ratio is huge, this usually shows that the company is overtrading, or it is undercapitalized. It does not have sufficient long-term funds. So you see this. So thank you very much for this, and until next time. Subscribe if you want to subscribe for regular updates. All right.